What's good, guys? Hope you're having a wicked day. Today's gonna be a super interesting video for a very niche audience, I could imagine. Not many people like giving it a go themselves, and I will admit it took a very long time to get used to and a very long time to get right. Certainly not something you can just quickly pick up in like a day and then slap some windows on and all of a sudden you've done your car flawlessly. It takes a lot of weeks, a lot of months to get right, a lot of years to perfect, and that is tinting a car. Now, I understand this is certainly not going to be the most popular video that I've ever put out, but here we are at Empire Tint and Vinyl today. Now, I've worked here for pretty much all of this year, and it has been a lot of fun. Certainly a really nice and really good change of pace for me mentally ever since going full-time last year. It was an absolute mess. This place has provided me with such a nice, chill environment, and it's a new skill that I've picked up that I can take absolutely anywhere. So today we're going to be tinting the R33. Now, for those of you that know, I actually tinted my 33 a couple of months ago, but we ended up using like a cheaper film. I was like within my first week, and it was the car that I learned how to tint on. So I'll bring it inside, I'll show you guys some of the mistakes that I made, and today we're going to be redoing the entire car in a much higher quality film that's going to last a lot longer, and it's going to look so much nicer because it's going to be so much darker. So first of all, let's bring her in. I don't know how many of you guys might have seen in the background of some of those beauty shots just how bad this tint actually is. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when you're standing back from it, it looks really nice, but getting up really close, the front windows aren't too bad. I definitely know that around this top corner right here, I definitely screwed it up. You guys can see right there. I ended up taking off the edge of the tint and it looked horrible, so I just chopped it around the actual corner itself. It looks horrible, and in the sun, you can still kind of see it. So today, we're gonna be fixing that up right there. Now, the glass itself on the outside is actually fairly scratched, so the only way to make this 100% flawless would be to replace the glass on the outside, but we're not gonna be doing that today because this stuff is super expensive. I tried to shrink it on the wrong side there, so I don't know how well you guys can see right there, but we got a spear that's going in that way, which you cannot fix. And then also we have a little bit of dirt down in the very bottom there. The rear screen is really terrible. You guys can see we have a massive big spear up the bottom here, and there is dirt and old tint all the way through the rear screen. This is the worst bit. Look at this. All that there is all old tint, so that's all going to be coming off today. This part here is probably the worst of all the dirt. As you guys can see, it's looking horrible. I did fix it up and just cover it up with some stickers beforehand, but it definitely doesn't fly with me now. And I also scratched it up the very top here. I wasn't too stressed about that though. That's completely fine. Hopefully this comes off really nicely. It's really cheap film anyway, so. Oh, mate. If this comes off with no glue. Oh, bro. Okay, there's a little bit of glue coming off, that's all right. That's so nice. All right, that's cool. So the biggest thing you guys can probably tell about this color film as well is it is blue. But the stuff that we used, I can't remember the exact name of it. Brett was given it by a supplier to test out, and the film was just garbage. I don't know exactly what brand it was, but the film is completely garbage. It has a horrible look to it. It kind of reminds me of like the factory Nissan OEM tint that they used to come out with was like a really bluey kind of film, but this was back in 1990s, so I can understand it. However, looking at it compared to Global Ceramic, which is what we're going to be putting on it today, you guys can see just how much of a difference that is. Like this right here is grey, and that there is bright blue. So this right here is the glass streak we put on it a couple of months back, and it is the best thing that I have ever done for this car. It looks so good, makes the car appear like so much lower as well. I don't know if you guys can really notice it, but I don't know. Rolling up to this thing when it's parked on the street, it just looks so sick. So today we're going to be getting rid of whatever this tint is right here, this horrible blue light mess. And we're going to be putting on some brand new global ceramic film. So I thought it'd be a little bit of fun for you guys to watch and see how it's all done, because a lot of people will just drop off their car and pick it up, you know, 4 hours later and it's dark. So cool, awesome. However, not a lot of people are actually interested in the aspect of, you know, looking at how it's done, wanting to learn how it's done. So today I'm not going to exactly teach you how to tint, because it will take a number of weeks for you to actually attempt it and try it yourself. But I'm just going to give you a few little tips and stuff that I picked up. So if you're starting out with tinting, or you just want to watch how it's all done, it is an extremely satisfying job. Trust me, this is extremely satisfying. So fingers crossed, all the tint just comes off perfectly. I'm going to fire up the steamer and show you guys how to take off tint, and then we'll get into it, I guess.
Running dry on the tip of my tongue. I can taste your lies.
So one of the easiest ways of taking off tint is very, very simple, and that is to get yourself a steamer. What the steamer will do is you run it you pick up an edge and you start to peel it back, and then you run a steamer across it, and it softens up the glue, and pretty much you can take off the whole window. And then it makes it really easy. It doesn't come off in tiny little spots or chips. It comes off as a whole, and pretty much like 50% of the time it'll actually take off the glue with it, but all the time you always want to make sure you scrape the window and get rid of all the glue off the windows anyway. So we're just going to go around, remove all the tint from every single window. This one right here is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to make sure that this one here is done properly, and that also means removing the rear seats. So we're going to be doing that. I would like to remove the actual glass itself, but hey, we can't do that, and I'm probably going to get a new piece of glass for this anyway, because it's, as you guys can see, fairly scratched up. So maybe when we paint the car eventually, but yeah, hopefully this stuff just all comes off nicely. Fingers crossed. I'm gonna quickly peel this one and see if it brings up any glue. That wasn't too bad. Can't really see much glue. It does get it down there. That's, yeah. So in most cases with frameless windows, and by frameless I mean, like, you know, obviously it doesn't have a frame around the windows. Usually you can do it without peeling the door card back. These door cards, however, on the R33 are fairly pressed up against it, but this is so easy because literally it is so old and so brittle that you can just do that. And so you just peel it back, so that way your tint is, or your window isn't actually touching the seal itself. It actually makes for a cleaner job anyway, so if you can do it, you may as well. Passenger side as well. Man, this thing is so flimsy. No wonder it makes so many horrible rattles. Oof. Tasty. So a little bit of glue left behind down here, but apart from that, looks pretty good. So we're just going to rip the other one off and see if that all comes off. Alrighty, fingers crossed. This one here should come off if I do it quick enough in one big piece with no glue. Get a little bit of glue down the bottom. Aside from that, it looks pretty good. So another quick tip for those of you, if you are looking at removing tint off a car and then putting it back on yourself, you can actually use these if they come out as one piece. You can use them as templates. So instead of scrunching them up and putting them in the bin, you now, all of a sudden, have a window that is the perfect size for an R33 GTST, or any R33 in general. So sick. So we'll keep that one there. We'll try and save some of the other ones as well. So I don't know how well you guys can see this, but as I was saying before with the steamer, super, super easy. So you just pick up a corner of the tint and you just run it. Oh, this is gonna come off so nicely. Such crap film. Oh, dude. And you just run the steamer against the glue and the tint comes off in one whole piece and there's no glue in behind it. Just like that. And now once again you have a template and you have a glueless window. How good. So you can see the car is looking fairly bare, and it also even looks as though the windows actually have like kind of like a blue tinge to them anyway. But don't let that fool you. The actual tint itself is just a horrible color. So this is just the tint as it sits. You can kind of see just how horrible and blue that looks. So I'm going to be changing all that up today. It's going to look really nice. So the entire car is now stripped. It's looking very bare. All of the back here is all gone, and the rear screen came off with no glue, which is absolutely beautiful. It's exactly what we want, even though I will still be getting a razor blade down in here just so I can strip all that glue off. So next step is to start cutting out the new film. Now, I was going to go with 5%. 5% completely blacks the car out and it would look awesome. And if I had a more mum spec car, kind of like Sarah's Corolla, I probably would put 5% all around. But I'll be honest, I don't really want to draw any more attention to myself than I already would driving an R33 with pokey wheels. So today we're going to keep it nice and modest. We're going to do what I've done on all of my cars, and that is ceramic 18. Ceramic 18 is a really nice borderline between legal and blackout. It's really nice to see through. To be honest, on a bright sunny day, I would much prefer to look through 5%. However, when it comes to nighttime driving, 5% can get a little bit too dark for my liking. And then during the day, 5% completely blacks it out. 18%, you can still kind of see into the car through the tint, but you can't really make out faces, you can't really make out people that are in there. It's still really nice and dark. So kind of looks less illegal while still being illegal, if you get me. I don't know, I'm rambling. 18% is just my personal preference, so yeah. Not only that, we've saved my driver's window, we've saved one of my quarter windows, and we also have the full rear screen, so now we can go along and we can make templates of all of these and do it that way, so that'd be really cool. So even just pulling out the 18% that we have right here, the 18 ceramic, and putting it beside our horrible film that we had on the R33, you can see just how much of a difference this is going to make. So this right here, such a nice color, it's all gray. And then this one right here is that horrible blue stuff you'd probably find on eBay. So all those people that call up tint shops and say, it's all right, I'll just order it off eBay or get it from super cheap and I'll do it myself. Have fun. This is the sort of stuff you'll be getting. So now what we do is we basically lay this on top of the 18%. We trim it all out, we flip it over, we trim it out again, and that way we'll have one for each side. We'll chuck it up on the peel boards, and yeah. I'll set you guys up on time lapse. I'll cut out all my film, and then I'll show you guys what to do. Rightio, so the sides are all done. So now we're looking at cutting out the rear, and I've run into a little bit of an issue. So for some of you who are tinters that might know, global ceramic film, or a lot of films at the moment, are actually incredibly out of stock due to just boats not coming and all that sort of stuff. So no one has any stock of film. We managed to find a few little tiny rolls of 18%. However, for some rear windows that are massive, these won't actually fit because you need to do them sideways, of course. Well, obviously it's not going to fit 90 degrees anyway. But as you guys can see, we are on the brink over here and we are well off on the other end there. So that means we have to go to a wider roll of film. Now we don't have any of that in 18, we only have that in 33 and 5. Now, in all fairness, I would like to put 33 on the back of it simply because it's not 5%, but what's the fun in that? We're gonna make the rear screen 5%. I feel like it's gonna be really nice. It's still gonna look nice and legal from the sides. However, on the back here, it's gonna cover up all of these horrible janky speaker holes, so that way no one can laugh at me at car meets. So we're gonna do the rear in 5%, and I'm excited. This is the first 5% that I've ever put on one of my own cars, so. Not gonna lie, 5% is super dark. So one thing to note with 5% as well is when you look through 18 on both side doors, it looks fairly dark. And then also when you're looking down into an interior, like a dark interior, much like a Skyline, it looks a little bit darker again. So when you have a four-wheel drive, usually 18 all around will look a little bit more like 33, and usually 5 will look a little bit more like 18. But of course, they still have their qualities, like, you know, 5 will still black it out and stuff. So one thing to note, especially why I'm okay with going 5% on the rear when normally I would not do 5% on the side doors, is because when you look through the side doors and you're looking through double 5, it basically blacks out the entire car. However, when you're behind the car and looking through the rear screen, as you guys can see, you can see straight through the windscreen. So what that's going to do is that's going to help the 5% appear more like an 18%. So anyone that's following me is going to be looking through, or if they can, look through the rear screen. And usually because you don't tint the windscreen, or you don't usually, but some people do, it'll appear a little bit brighter. So that's why I'm okay with going 5% on the rear. I feel like if I didn't have enough 18% to do the doors, I definitely wouldn't be doing the doors in 5. I'd probably step up to 33. It'll still look a lot darker than what was on it. Now anyway, the very next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to be shrinking the tint. This is another quick tip that I'm going to give you guys as well, is when you're actually cutting the film, you always want to make sure that if you are going to shrink it, that you cut long ways. You can get away with cutting tint any way, shape whatsoever, as long as the glass is completely flat. As soon as you start dealing with curved glass, you want to make sure that you're always cutting your film so the windows run this way. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to shrink the film. So not a lot of people know this, but you can actually shrink window film to a certain point. Obviously, if you're a tinter, you do this all the time. Pretty much every single rear screen on any car will require shrinking, but it only shrinks one way. So film has a grain, much like wood and vinyl and pretty much any other film like this. But it'll shrink up and down. So if I have a big bunched up piece right here, I can get a heat gun, I can press it all out, then we can slide it all out, and that'll shrink that certain point there, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. Because these front doors, not that you can really see it, but they're actually like semi-curved. Now, when I originally did this, I didn't actually shrink them on the glass outside. I just had a whole big bunch of stuff down the bottom here, and I just wet shrunk it. And it's not the most ideal way, but you can get away with it. But today, we're going to do it on the outside. So we're going to cover this in water, we're going to put the film on top, and then we're going to shrink it all the way down so it's a nice even shrink. Now this one here, you can actually get away with putting it on the glass, moving all of your shrinking stuff down to this section down here and pressing it all out. So I'll show you both ways today, but this is very satisfying. All right, so now that we have our window all prepped, pretty much you don't want to be shrinking on a dirty window, because when you go to squeegee it out, you'll hit a rock or something there, it'll put a mark in your film. Because you're going to be squeegeeing over the side that has the protective film on it, anything underneath will actually scratch. So if you have rocks or debris or dust or anything and it starts to move around, it'll end up scratching your film before you even put it on. So we're just going to wet all that. I've already cleaned it all. So now we're going to grab our film. And this is sort of like the first look at what it's going to look like with 18%. And just like that, it's done. Close her up. No. So now we'll grab our little squeegee thing, we'll press out the sides. And what we want to do is we want to press everything into the center here. So you move your way around the glass. Probably won't be a crazy shrink, this one here. There you go. So I don't know if you guys can really see that. I don't know, yeah, you probably won't. You start already moving it down. You might be able to see that some of these big things right here, all of these will need to get pressed out to make sure that when we put it on, that they're not going to appear up in the tint. So what we do is we grab a heat gun, and this is what we call a wet shrink, simply because it's wet. And we're just going to run it over and start shrinking all of the tint down. And you can see now we've started to create some bigger ones, so that's exactly why we're doing this. It's kind of satisfying when they run up the glass like that. You want to be super careful not to burn it. It takes a few burnt pieces of tint to understand when you're about to burn it. And of course with a lot of these older cars as well, they also have an issue where you can burn alongside the rubber. You don't want to burn the rubber, especially on the FD, because they cost so much. This car wouldn't be overly bad, but... Rightio, so that wasn't too bad. So I'll grab the camera right now. So you can see where everything was all wavy is now perfectly flat. So now in theory, this edge down here is now shorter than this edge up here. Now we're not going to stress too much about this because it's pretty much all flat, and we're going to be trimming off the very top edge once we put it on the actual window itself. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to shrink the other side there, and then we'll get to actually putting this piece of tint on. Here comes the satisfying bit. So first of all, we just need to get rid of all the old glue. So that means getting a scraper, which I've already lost, which is this one right here. And it's getting rid of all the glue that's stuck to the glass when we're taking the other one off. Alright, so just like paint, prep work is key, so make sure you're getting every little ounce of glue off this thing, because as soon as you leave any skerrick of glue on this thing, you'll end up being able to see through it and find a result, and to a customer's car, that is a no-go. Rip the whole thing off, you redo it. That includes cutting it out, shrinking, doing everything. Could end up costing you about half an hour or so. So make sure, so even spending an extra little 5 minutes, making sure that there's no glue on this thing, it's gonna be 100% worth it in the end. This is the super satisfying bit. You actually get to stick the tint on. So first of all, what we're going to do, I'm going to push. We'll just get this all wet. So this is just a mixture of dish soap. There's no special chemicals in it. Just going to get that all nice and wet. Now we're going to peel the backing sheet off the tint and do the same thing. And so without touching the sticky side of the tint at all, just going to place it under the window and move it around until it all falls into place. So making sure there's no light gaps, making sure it tucks in behind all the rubbers. Can sometimes be very fiddly, but if you could imagine, frameless doors are a lot easier than frame doors. And just like that, we have a freshly tinted door. And you guys can already see just how far it's come from the original piece of film that was on this glass. You can see that corner there now, I don't know if I'll get it to try and focus on it. You guys can see that corner there now is 100% all the way to the edge, which looks awesome. And all those little tiny scratches you can see just down the very side there, I don't know if you can see it. It's all on the outside of the glass. It's never going to look 100% perfect if you have an older car like this. However, if you jump to the other side as well, look at that. There is no imperfections on that whatsoever. And whoop, probably better do this first. Pushes that door card back into place. On the 33, it's nice and easy. And would you look at that? So you guys can already see just how much better this is going to look. That's the comparison. Looks so much nicer, and it's not as blue, which is one of the best things about it. It's nowhere near as blue. If anything, it kind of has like a little bit of a greeny, grey sort of effect to it, which is kind of nice. I don't know, I've always loved the look of ceramic, of global ceramic. Alrighty, let's get to these rear quarters. Alright, so I'm not sure exactly how to film this one, but I'm gonna speed through the whole process. It's very, very similar to the other window, except this time we're gonna be shrinking on the inside of the glass right here. So I'm gonna do everything like I normally would, and then I'll show you guys what it's gonna look like after. Alright, so now this is what I was talking about for the shrinking on the inside. So this window is in fact curved, and it actually has a fairly decent, fairly big, oh you guys can see fairly big bubbles there. So originally this one here was around the outside there. Now this is what you do not want at all. So I don't know if you guys can see that. It's kind of hard to, doesn't want to focus on it. So you guys can see it's around the corner of the glass there. Now, if you go to try and shrink that, it's not going to follow it's not going to be within the right grain, if you guys kind of get me. So what it's going to do is it's going to shrink and then spear across the entire glass, and that's not what you want. So what you want to do is you want to move them around so that way now it comes from the bottom. So now when you go to try and shrink that, it's going to then shrink up, and you can press it all the way down, and it's not going to have any issues. And I'll show you guys what this looks like on the outside of the film as well. The glass looks a little bit damaged there because I can't feel it through the tint. So I actually think, yeah, it's actually scratched. Oh, it's not scratched at all. It's just sticker residue. Hell yeah. So that's what that would look like on the outside of the glass. Now, if you guys have ever seen that on dry tint, it's basically because the sun gets to it and it starts to spear up and it wasn't actually done properly from when you first got it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a heat gun right now. We're going to try and split this into two. Oh yeah, that kind of worked. So we're going to split this into a few little tiny ones. I'm going to press all these out. So let's get to exactly the same theory as what you would normally do on the outside of the glass. You're doing it on the inside. Check out how satisfying this is. And then as soon as it's shrunk like that, just press it all the way out. And then they'll keep spearing up. You just keep pressing them down. Ooh, that's looking so good. So in terms of all the little tiny bubbles and everything that you guys can see in it, that'll all dry out in like 3 days time. So don't stress. What you do once you first get your car tinted, you leave it out in the sun as much as you can for the next 3 days. The best thing is this thing lives outside, so that's completely fine. But all those little tiny bubbles will all come out. And as you guys can see, there's no more dirt. So we fixed that issue. All right, so we've done a quarter window, we've done a front driver's door. I'm gonna go around, do the other two windows off camera because I don't really have much film left. And then we'll jump on the rear screen, which I'm not excited about. So I can see you guys in a second. All right, so here is the most annoying part of the entire thing. To be honest, I don't know too much about this personally myself. I've done it only a handful of times, so it's gonna be very interesting. But we are going to be shrinking this rear screen right here. So yes, as you guys can see, there is a lot of shrinking that needs to be done, and there is a very big potential that it could possibly burn through. So I'm gonna do this off camera, so that way Brett doesn't cringe at me. But now I've done it heaps of times. Shrinking is pretty easy nowadays, so it's getting it in the car is the worst bit. So I'm just gonna do this off camera. I'll show you guys what it looks like once that's all shrunk. Okay, I'm not lying.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
I was not expecting at all to get that first go, but hey, we're here, done it. So that's the first hardest bit of this whole screen right here. The next one is cleaning up the rear screen and getting it in the car. So I'm gonna give myself the best opportunity possible to get this thing in, and that is by taking out the rear seat, taking out the parcel shelf, which has all the furry stuff all over it. And yeah, we're gonna cut this one to size really quickly as well. Oh man, I will admit, I was very nervous. There was a whole big bunch of stuff up here, but oh well. We got through it, woohoo! All right, so the glass is all nice and clean. I just took out all of the interior pieces that I needed to. One thing to note, especially with the R33s, is if you guys remember, the main battery is in the boot, and that also includes all of your fuse boxes and everything else in there. So using a lot of water certainly isn't the go here. Ideally, you want to cover that all up. I've covered it all up in the past. I'll just make sure I don't use too much water for today's process. So the entire glass has all been scraped down, has all been steel walled, and now it's time to just run over like I would normally tint a window. The biggest thing is this window is just so long, and the way that you pick them up is you actually use your entire arm the whole way up, and my arm isn't long enough. From my shoulder to my fingers isn't long enough because yeah, I'm tiny. I'm only like 168 centimeters tall. I'm nothing special. This is just, it's a big, this is why I don't really do these things too much. But so the idea is you peel it all back so the sticky side is facing up, you wet it all down, and then you walk it inside here, which obviously you don't want to touch the furry seat here. You don't want to touch that furry seat. You don't want to trip over or get in there and tint that there. So it's kind of like, being short is kind of like a blessing in disguise, but it's kind of a catch-22 in the way that you don't have arms long enough to tint. Ideally, you would want to be like as tall as me, but have slender man arms to get into the back of doing all this sort of stuff. So it's not going to be fun. I'm just going to have you guys set up on the outside here, so that way you can see what we're doing and how I get in the car. I think that'd be kind of funny, but yeah, you guys won't see anything in the inside. So, oh man, I'm not looking forward to this at all. This is like an hour's prep for this. Gonna spray down all the back, just in case I hit any of the metal. There goes nothing. I hate this. So now that that's all up there, you get rid of all the big air bubbles with your hands. As you can see, make sure there's no light gaps at all. I did cut it pretty fine, so fingers crossed. And as you can see, there's no light gaps. So now, as we squeegee it out, and you pray to God that there is no dirt in it. Because if there's any dirt in it, with a regular customer's car, I'll be taking it off and restarting. But with my car, I don't really care too much. All right, I'm not gonna lie. This was the smoothest rear screen I have ever done. Apart from hatchbacks, they're pretty easy. Sedan-wise, this just went in. I managed to fit everything up, and it has minimal dirt in it. Definitely a pass in my books. I don't know if you guys can see just down through there. It's probably gonna be really hard to see. There is some tiny little dust marks in there, but honestly, I am not fussed about that whatsoever because I checked over the rest of it and there is no marks in this entire rear windscreen at all. There is no dust up through here. Honestly, this is the nicest rear screen I have honestly ever done. And 5% is so hard to get right at the same time, simply because it's so dark that any bubbles or anything is so hard to spot. So to get it this perfect on my first go is insane. So as I said, I've probably done maybe 5 or 6 rear screens. That one there is certainly the cleanest one I've ever done. God damn. And now we get to look at the car in all its glory. We'll shut up all the doors. Man, she's dark in the back. God, it looks good. Woo! God damn. And you guys can sort of see what I mean by the 18% you can just see through, and then the 5%, if you get down low enough, you can't really see it. But that's all right. You guys kind of get me. And the 5% in the back certainly makes these rear quarters pop. Man, and then looking through it is honestly not too bad at all. Oh man, that is so nice. I am stoked. This looks so good. So much better than that horrible blue stuff. Absolutely massive difference. Massive difference. Righto guys, so that's me done for today. Unfortunately we can't make our car look like this. There's the boss's Merc. It's very nice. It's got a tinted windscreen as well, glare strip. So it's a 42 windscreen, 5 glare strip, 18 front, 5 over privacy glass, 18 over privacy glass. Thing is mint. So nice to drive during the day. At night, I don't know. Fronts would be fine at night, but yeah. Anyway guys, I'm gonna head off. Thank you so much everyone for watching. This was kind of a cool video. I'll probably pick this up at home. So yeah, hopefully it doesn't rain on the way home. Oh, so much nicer inside this car now. That rear screen is so dark. Kind of want a tinted windscreen now. Can't do that though. I should, anyway.
Yeah, and first of all, I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. But there's plenty different ways for you to go and get your props. You don't need to try pretending living lifestyles you ain't got. That's that shit I told myself when I was low and feeling lost. Learning lessons pay the cost while they watching Hugo.